All right, let's talk about what actually happened overnight. Because if you're just staring at price candles, you might think the market flinched. Bitcoin pulls back from the low 94s, Ethereum cools off, alts take a breath, and suddenly crypto Twitter is writing its "crypto is dead" obituary again. But here's the reality. This isn't panic. This is digestion. We just broke out of a multi-month descending structure. Markets don't go straight up after that. They retest, they rotate, they shake out weak hands. Fear and greed is sitting at 49, neutral. Bitcoin dominance is easing slightly. Volume hasn't disappeared. And structurally, nothing important broke. So today's show isn't about hype. It's about context. What this pullback actually means, where strength is quietly building, and why this market still looks a lot healthier than most people want to admit. Let's get into it.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's talk markets. Bitcoin is sitting just under 93,000 after rejecting slightly below the 94 handle. And yes, that's a pullback. But no, it's not a breakdown. Zooming out to the daily, Bitcoin is still holding above former resistance that now wants to act like support, which, inconveniently for the doom posters, is exactly what a healthy breakout retest looks like. Momentum indicators are cooling, not collapsing, volume hasn't vanished, and structurally, Bitcoin has not invalidated the move. If this were real weakness, you'd already see it. Ethereum tells a similar story. ETH pulled back into the low 3200s after failing to push cleanly through the mid-33s. That's a rejection, not a reversal. Ethereum remains above its short-term moving averages, and more importantly, it's still trending higher off the December lows. Translation, ETH isn't weak, it's just not in a hurry. Now let's talk alts. XRP gave back some gains after a strong recent move, but remains structurally bullish as long as it holds above the low $2 range. Solana cooled off into the high 130s after a strong rebound off December lows. Again, normal rotation, not panic, not capitulation. Zooming out to sentiment, fear and greed sits at 49, dead center neutral, which is impressive considering how emotional the timeline sounds. Bitcoin dominance slipped slightly, now hovering around 58%, suggesting capital is slowly rotating, not fleeing. That's what early cycle broadening looks like, quietly. So, the takeaway here is simple. No structural damage, no panic signals, no trend break, just a market that ran, paused, and is deciding where to go next. And judging by the charts, it's not done yet. Next, let's get into the news driving the narrative today and separate what actually matters from what's just getting clicks. Covering it all after this.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's get into the news. And today's theme is simple. Regulation is moving, institutions are filing, and price is responding. First up, and this one actually matters, the U.S. Senate Banking Committee has officially scheduled a markup for the crypto market structure bill on January 15th. Not a rumor, not a leak, not sources familiar with the matter, a real markup on the calendar, which explains why crypto Twitter collectively yelled, "It's happening!" all at once. This bill is expected to address custody, exchange oversight, and the basic question of who regulates what. And that matters because institutions don't hate crypto. They hate uncertainty. Clear rules don't kill markets. They unlock capital. Next, Wall Street joins the chat. Morgan Stanley has officially filed for spot Bitcoin and spot Solana ETFs. Yes, Morgan Stanley, 19 million wealth clients. Not exactly early adopters. This isn't about headlines. This is about access. When a firm like Morgan Stanley files, they're not asking if demand exists. They already know. If approved, this pushes crypto exposure beyond BTC and ETH and straight into mainstream portfolios. Third, XRP absolutely moved today. XRP surged 11 to 12%, pushing into the 237 to 240 range on heavy volume. ETF inflows picked up, resistance flipped to support, and CNBC even called it the hottest coin of 2026, which usually means it just got noticed. Whether this becomes a sustained trend or a local top depends on follow-through, not vibes. But make no mistake, this is real rotation, not a random pump. Now again, Michael Saylor did what Michael Saylor does. Strategy added another 1,287 Bitcoin, bringing total holdings to over 673,000 BTC. At this point, this isn't a trade. It's a thesis. And with MSCI confirming digital asset-heavy companies remain in major indexes, corporate exposure just got normalized. Supply keeps tightening, conviction keeps compounding, and finally, Bitcoin keeps grinding higher. BTC briefly tagged 94,000 before settling back near 93. Fed liquidity, geopolitical tailwinds, and risk-on flows are all quietly supporting price. Not exactly the conditions for a crash, despite what the replies say. Calls for 100,000 are getting louder, but the real story is how controlled this move has been. So here's the picture. Regulation is advancing, institutions are filing, corporations are accumulating, and price is reacting. Without euphoria, volatility will pick up as that January 15th markup approaches, but structurally, this is how markets build, not how they break. Next, let's see what the community has been saying. The proof of thought mailbag after the break.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, we're back. Time to open the proof of thought mailbag, where the charts are optional, but the opinions never are. Let's start with a good one. This comes from @CryptoDad1979. Quote, first time staking SENB. Didn't expect to understand it this easily. Appreciate the transparency. That's the goal. If you need a PhD to participate, you're not building a community, you're building an obstacle course. Appreciate you being early and actually reading the docs. Rare behavior. All right, now let's balance that out. @MoonsoonBro asks, when Binance listing? Feels dead without it. Ah yes, the sacred Binance listing question. For those keeping score at home, this gets asked on literally every project since 2017. Listings follow liquidity, usage, and time, not vibes, and definitely not replies. If Binance listings were summoned by comments, Dogecoin would be the global reserve currency. Next one. @BearishBob420 says, looks like a pump. What happens when whales dump? Fair question. Here's the difference between a pump and a structure. Pumps spike vertically, collapse violently, and disappear quietly. Structure builds sideways, locks supply, and bores people right before it works. If you're bored, you're probably early. Okay, this one made me laugh. @AnonMacro writes, is this financial advice? Absolutely. Please sell your house, leverage your dog, and go all in based on a cartoon with a microphone. No. This is commentary. Education. Context. Your risk button is not transferable. Last one for today. @QuietBuilder says, I don't post much, but appreciate the long-term tone. Feels different from the usual noise. That means more than you probably realize. The loudest voices aren't always the ones building. This space doesn't need more hype. It needs more adults. And better memes. But mostly adults. All right, mailbag closed for today. Let's wrap this up with a final thought coming up next.
You're listening to the SENB Daily Brief, powered by Whole Shot Coffee.
All right, let's bring this home. If you zoom out far enough, this wasn't just another green day. It wasn't just ETF filings or Senate markups or another company buying Bitcoin. It was alignment. Regulation is moving. Institutions are committing. Liquidity is loosening. And the market is starting to believe again. Not euphoric, not reckless, just awake. And that's usually how the real moves start. Here's the reminder. You don't need to chase every candle, comment on every post, or refresh every chart. You need a plan. You need patience. And you need to know why you're here in the first place. Because the people who win cycles aren't the loudest. They're the ones who stay when it gets boring again. And it always gets boring again. We'll keep cutting through the noise. We'll keep calling things straight. And we'll keep building one day at a time. If you found value here, you know what to do. I'll see you tomorrow. Stay sharp, stay curious, and don't let the internet trade for you. The SENB Daily Brief is a production of SENB Hero Media in collaboration with Whole Shot Coffee, coffee that fuels champion. Written and hosted by yours truly, SENB Hero. Production, editing, and scheduling handled by Maya Valencia, who somehow keeps me on time, caffeinated, and occasionally polite. Original theme music composed and produced by Paul Hahn, the community legend whose beats hit harder than a Fed rate hike. Research support provided by the SENB community. Proof that sarcasm and spreadsheets can coexist. For more shows, merch, and on-chain chaos, visit senbheromedia.com. Thanks for tuning in. Stay caffeinated. And remember, if it's not in the brief, it probably wasn't bullish anyway.
Set my wallet free.